It's the official NRL Fantasy Podcast.
Well, it's NRL Fantasy for 2025 and it's a blank slate. So we're going to pick your team. I'm Paulie G, with me, Daniel Long, Andrew Molinaroli. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
Awesome, can't wait.
Going to teach people. I know we have a lot of viewers that are playing for either the first time or in the infancy of their fantasy careers. So why not use this opportunity to help pick the team? It can be daunting at the start of each year when we see that immediately blank 21 slots. So what do you guys do? How do you sort of face that? What's the first sort of player you pick?
Your fantasy team is a blank canvas, so it's a very exciting position to be in. I would say that fantasy sides are very similar to real NRL sides. So in an NRL side, you've got your captain, you've got your leadership team, you've got your regular starters, and you have your young up-and-comers. So it's the same thing in fantasy. We'll take that four-step approach and we'll fill this team out with a bunch of quality guys.
So you're picking a captain first up. Here's all the best players from last year. Who are you taking?
I like how long you said it's exciting. I find it quite daunting actually, trying to get all these spots. I'm so basic. Let's just get Cleary in.
So Nathan Cleary's the first player picked.
He was picked.
You're making him captain.
Yep.
100%.
Captain's double points, by the way, for people that are new to fantasy. So Nathan Cleary had one of the best average, second best average, I think, in the game last year. So if he's getting double, you're pretty happy.
Yep.
But even though he's high priced, we've got enough salary cap starting with 10 million that we can spend big on a couple of other positions. So what are you thinking, Longy? Mid?
Yeah, middle forward. So last year we saw the top middle forwards performed well, and the people who invested there early got massive points out of them. So we'll jump into the mid spot. I'll throw to you to pick one of these guys here.
You're a Yo believer, aren't you?
I like Yo. I like Haas.
I love
Haas
Haas.
is cheaper.
I love
I
Haas.
like Hopgood.
I love Haas. Let's grab Haas.
So this is the way where you're getting guys that you watch, proven players in fantasy, also in real life. Pretty
been a
handy.
gun
And
for
Haas
so
is
many-
quite a bit cheaper than Yo. And then you don't want to have too many of the one team either, right?
Yeah, he's been so good for so long, Payne Haas. He can't not. I started last year without him, and yeah.
But we could go one more big name, Longy. So what are you thinking? What position?
I mean, ideally, it's your first team, right? So you want to balance your roster out a bit. And I'm looking at the back line. I think we need a leader in that position. So wing, fullback. Of this list here, so Mitchell, Teddy, Edwards, Ponga, Campbell, Trbojevic, Walsh, these are all guys that are great to watch. And really, it's up to you. So with wing, fullback, it's real form in real life. And it's sort of team performance. And it's open season.
One of our rules is don't pick your favourite players, don't pick too many guys from your favourite club. But if it's one of these seven, we're saying that's okay. That's the exception to the rule, right? If you're a Souths fan, just take Latrell. Roosters, Teddy, Panthers, Edwards. We're thinking, none of us are Knights fan, but we're thinking maybe Kalen Ponga, right?
Might be kicking goals, so that's a little cherry on top.
It's a lot of money though that we've spent, so we're going to have to start finding some more value.
Yep.
Some positions still available. What about edge? That's usually a position that you can find people a little bit cheaper than your Fafitas and your Hopgoods and your Crichtons, even though they're awesome. So what are we thinking for edges? Can we go down this list a little?
Yeah, edge is exciting this year. So there's a few guys who are undervalued right now who could potentially be the top edge in fantasy. He's just popped up right there in the middle. Penrith Panthers, Isaiah Papali'i. He's a guy who pumped out a 60-plus average at Parramatta a few years ago. He joins the Panthers, and if he plays next to Cleary, he's the top back row in fantasy.
Got him in early, and then do you want to pick a second edge while we're here for the similar price, or do you want to wait a bit?
I think we'll grab another edge. Do you have anyone in mind?
I mean, I really like Trent Liero, but I do believe he's probably a bit too mid-price at the moment, so we might just go down a little bit.
Zach Hoskins there as well, another guy who has high upside.
Do you think he's going to start? I mean, he's injured now, but do you think he's going to start the season?
Maybe.
Bit of risk with him and Matty Nicholson coming in. That's worth considering. But if we roll down this list, Tommy Gilbert is a really good shout as well. So let's put Gilbert in there.
Yeah, good idea.
Dual position with middle too.
500k, even getting a little bit cheaper again. So now we can reset.
Yep.
We've still got some positions to fill totally and others to fill out. What about centre? Because in fantasy, often centre has a very wide variance. You can see Herbie Farmer with average of 55. He's over 730k. You go down the list and you see some pretty good players in there like Garrick and Best, quite a bit cheaper, Cobbo. And then you go down further and there's big names, RTS, Timoko, a lot of players that play a very high level in normal rugby league and they're not too expensive. So is there 2 players on that list we can get where we can save a bit of money for the other positions?
Do you like to go hard on the centres? I don't usually like to go too hard with the centre on there.
Yeah, usually it's one
Yeah.
sort of anchor centre and
Yep.
one guy who's a bit cheaper. So what you're looking for out of your centre is high input in terms of running the ball and potentially defensive output as well. So 362k, if you roll down this list a bit. Jack Bird, this is a no-brainer. So Bird's touted to be the starting lock at the Tigers. That means 40 tackles a game. That means 100 metres plus running. And that means potentially top centre in fantasy if he can stay fit.
So he's one at 362. Are you looking to go even cheaper again and get someone like a Tamale who might play in round 1? Purdue's been talked about. The McLean,
I know you're a McLean
brothers,
guy. Maybe
Toya.
on him.
Yeah, I don't mind McLean. I think we haven't seen too much of him, but what we've seen, I think he's the goods. And like he screams an NRL player. He's got a good work rate, solid in defence, and he's playing for Penrith. So
They
I
get
don't think
picked
he can go
first
wrong.
up. You could look at him. If McLean isn't picked, Rob Toya I would definitely recommend as an alternative. McLean in there for now. Also, those 2 players are dual position. If you're not familiar with what that means, it means they can play in their centre position, but also in one of the other positions. In Bird's case, edge. McLean's case, wing fullback. It's handy once we fill all of this out. And you'll see as the rounds go on. All right, we still need a hooker.
Hooker's interesting this year. So if we go to the hooker list, there's a few options you can take here. So the first option is Harry Grant is the number 1 guy and has been a 65 average for years. He's now down at 53.8 for his average. So you could look at him and say, you know what, he's the captain of the Storm. They're a fantastic team. He's due for a bounce back. That's one option. The option I'm personally leaning towards here is that I like Connor Watson, who's going to have his dual position added later, which we'll talk about in a sec. So I'm going cheap at hooker. So right down the bottom, Peter Marmazelis, he's being talked about as a South Sydney starter. You're going to have to keep an eye on team lists closer to round 1, but he's my placeholder right now.
Save a lot of money there, which means we've still got another half. We've still got a couple of mids and a couple of wing fullbacks. So 5.5 million still in the bank. We're about halfway. We've got more than half to fill, but those 4 emergencies don't count, obviously, each week. So let's look at the second half. And are we trying to pay up for someone? Not as much as Cleary, obviously, but someone in that mid-range.
So there's 2 guys at around 589k who I really like, and I'm going to let you be my tiebreaker here.
Go
But
on.
it's Cam Munster, Jerome Luai. Cam Munster returns from an injury-riddled season, is traditionally 55 to 60. Jerome Luai gets a new role at the Tigers where he's going to be that number 1 guy. Which one do you like?
I like Luai. He's got the range at the Tigers, more kicking, just general. He's the man now.
So you got the Panthers halves
There you
from
go.
last year.
I mean, you can't go wrong with them.
They've been
Full-time
comps, yeah.
premiers.
Look, Munster's a great player and a great choice. Melbourne have a round 2 bye, which means you're going to have another half to cover him after the first week is finished. So Luai, if it's a complete 50-50 call for you, I think Luai's got to get over the edge. If you love Munster, though, for sure pick him, but I wouldn't go heavy on Melbourne players. If you've got Munster, you probably don't want any others.
Agree with that.
Mid, we can probably afford to spend a little bit of money here, but we might also have to go a little bit cheaper. You talked about Connor Watson. Do you want him in the mid position, or are you thinking save him for the interchange?
I'm happy to drop him in to the starting side. There's a few
Let's do
guys that will pop onto our bench. The other guy I'll throw in is Terrell May as well.
So we're going
Yeah,
quite...
he's been talking about
Yeah.
Terrell for a long time now.
I'm a Terrell May truther.
Yeah,
I see him in that Tigers jersey and I think Andrew Fafita in his prime. So
It's a great looking side, but I'm worried now. I didn't go too far with maths in school, but I went far enough to know that 3.5 into 10 positions isn't a lot of money. I think it works out to exactly 359k per player. So wing fullback, we're going to have to save some money. How do we do it?
Do you like your new recruit from the Panthers?
which Yongi, of course.
Yongi?
Yeah.
I think he's a must.
So 350k.
Yep, Yongi, I'm with you there. So right there, I think he's going to be about that 40 average at Parramatta, which is a great spot to be.
Yep.
The other guy I jumped to, I think he's lower, about 300k, is Munro from South Sydney. So I'd just say don't overthink this. He's an athletic freak. He's playing outside Latrell Mitchell, and we've seen South Sydney wingers dominate with try scoring. So we saved a bit of money there.
Done well. Now, interchange 14 through 17 will count. 18 through 21 will only count if someone in your 17 doesn't end up playing. I should also mention, before we pick our interchange, we need a vice captain. So normally your VC, well, the VC, not normally, they're always locked in, but normally we just play over one round played over 1 week. Vegas means 2. So you pretty much need to pick a player to VC who's playing in that opening 2 games, which means we haven't actually got any Raiders or Warriors or Sharks.
We're in a tricky spot. I mean, we could take Paulie as a Panther, potentially.
Let's do that for now. And if we find a Raiders, Warriors or Sharks in our interchange, we might make a little sub at some point. But let's go to interchange. Again, we've just a little bit, probably around 370k now per player. Means we could probably get one guy a bit better than that, but the rest of them are going to have to be under. Is there a guy you really like that we couldn't fit in here, but you've just got your eye on through the preseason?
I might just hit on quickly too, if you're in desperation stations for, needing cheapies, scroll right down to the bottom of the list. And just before round 1, there'll be green dots on all the guys who are playing. I use that strategy all the time. But in terms of cheapies, I think we can jump right down to Sandon Smith is our first option. If he can be named in round 1, then he's a guy who should average around 40 points on that Roosters side.
And we've got these filters as well, where we can say 0 to 300. That helps us get down to those bottom players.
Bottom price, Paulie.
Bottom price players.
Yep.
Because when we're dealing with interchanges, we don't have to worry about what position they're named at. We can pick them no matter what.
That's it. So we'll take Sandon there. While you're finding him as well, if we can roll back down, Tom Duffy is sitting in the picture, a few more scrolls down, but he could potentially be the starter at the Cowboys. There's a bit of talk about that. So at this stage of the preseason, you can put guys like that in, leave them as placeholders, and check again round 1, and if they're not there, you sub them out.
What are your thoughts on having another half on your bench there? Maybe not on the bench, but just in your squad there. I really like the look of Carter Gordon. I know he's 350. But he looks good, and they've got the bye first up.
Let's hold him for now, but we might pop him in those 18 to 21, as I said, because they have the bye first up. What about covering? We know we've got Tom Gilbert who can play mid, but he's in the edge. We've got Bird who can play edge, but in mid. But what about people like Hooker Mamazelos or some of our wing fullbacks? Do we need to think about covering them as weeks 2, 3, 4, 5 roll on?
Absolutely. So I'd say we'd look through this list and go, all right, Corey Pakes, he's sitting there. He's got dual position, hooker and half. There's some talk, again, there's a lot of talk at this stage of the preseason, but there's a bit of talk that he could be the starter at the Broncos for at least the first 9 weeks while Ben Hunt's playing the halves.
So Corey Pakes can come in there. Let's look at some players in positions, and we'll take off this price just for now. But as I said, we probably need another edge because we're a little light there. And with 5 players left, 2.1 million. Now all of a sudden, we've got over 400k on each player because we have gone quite cheap.
There we go.
Anyone in this list, like a Jack Howarth, mid-priced, that you might like, or do you go up a bit more? And what about Finafuiaki?
You're a Finafuiaki fan. Are you thinking it just depends if he's going to get that big minute role?
Yeah,
he's a good option.
I mean, I liked him at the Cowboys, but yeah, whether he gets that role, I mean, I might take a punt on him just because I liked the cut of his jib. So
I like him. You've got guys like Schuster there as well. Piakura. We'll see what happens in round 1. But for now, Finafuiaki might be the best place.
I would love to get Bullymore, but I don't think he plays enough minutes. Big fan of Bullymore, only because I'm a Manly fan.
And we're down to our emergencies, and we're in a spot where we can, again, still not have to go out and out cheap. Any guys that you think are going to be worth watching through the preseason?
Halves, one guy I really am excited about for the preseason challenge is Luke Metcalf. Luke Metcalf comes in. There's talk he played a lot of 7 as a younger player. There's talk he'll be the goal kicker for the Warriors, and I think that Warriors team is underrated. Like, it's a good forward pack, it's a good back line. If he can be a solid 7, they'll be really good.
All right, we've got him in. We might be overdone with the halves, but we can always manipulate that in a minute. 3 more emergencies.
For hookers there, Paulie. I don't mind. With Croker being out for Manly, Simkin is pretty decently priced, and I think he'll get a fair few minutes.
Let's have a look at Simpkin at 371. Did
place,
play
yeah.
well last year when Croker was out, and he first moved over.
What do we need, Paulie? What do we need? What do we need?
928k, right?
Yeah.
So 928k. There's a few things to consider here. I think we go a relative cheapie and then a pretty solid player.
Yeah.
Connor Watson is a guy we're thinking about moving to hooker in round 1.
Yeah.
So we might need to go for a middle, someone really solid in that spot. So let's have a look at middle. Fisher Harris actually is a good shout. He's a guy, he's gone to the Warriors this year. He'll
pop
play
him
more
in.
minutes most likely. Good placeholder.
And then we can sub in for Smith, who we're not sure if he's starting or not. Suddenly Fisher Harris is getting a scoring point. You've still got 328k to go. And we're still saying, if one of these halves hit, do you sacrifice Luai and get some more money for another position?
Oh, it's risky. I mean, what if we can do that? Or
I am
we could
excited to
roll-
see Luai though this year to
Because you've got Metcalf.
Yeah.
I don't mind the idea of having multiple halves. I think round 1, you just pick the best possible team. You're going to be using trades early in the season, so I'm not super worried about that side of the roster construction. But if we look down the list and just see, all right, 328k, who is there?
We can
that price.
search by players that we can afford. It's another way to do that.
So who have we got here? I mean, this is a lot of fantasy, by the way, just rolling through the list and sort of going, all right, who
I
do
know.
I like?
I know the guy I like is Tamale. If he gets named, Albert Hopewadi won't be playing in round 1. He's come over from the Dragons, played amazingly in New South Wales Cup. Really, really exciting attacking player, which means, you know, if he does well in attack, he'll be scoring lots of fantasy points because that's where you pick up most of your fantasy scores, particularly as a back. We are a bit light on for centre backup.
Agree.
So if you're happy, I could put him in.
Tamale's a good option. Yeah, we need that centre back up 100%.
And the other beautiful thing when you become a more experienced fantasy player is the loophole. Raiders play very first game of round 1. You stick him in at 18. If he goes bananas, gives you the opportunity after Vegas to move out one of the players like a Corey Pakes if he's not named, and we could easily bring in Carter Gordon.
Yeah.
Gordon plays here. His score obviously won't count because he's on a bye. And Tamale's counts instead.
It's advanced loopholing, Paul.
Advanced loopholing. But this is our team for those listening on the podcast. Mamazelos at hooker. Haas, Watson and May in the props or mids. Edge is Isaiah Papali'i and Tom Gilbert. Half captain, Nathan Cleary. Jerome Luai's there as well, although we may be smart and sub him for Luke Metcalf, because that way we've got our vice captain for Vegas. And that just opens up a few more doors for us. Bird and McLean in the centres. Ponga, Iongi, Munro wing, fullback, and then Fisher Harris, Luai, Corey Pakes if he's named, and Finafuiaki will be our interchanges. Obviously, Jake Simpkin is on the emergencies that could also come into that with Tamale, Duffy and Smith. Sand and Smith, that is.
It's a good first draft. It's a good first draft, and the best thing about this too is you can go back to this every day or every hour if you're like me. And,
Unlimited change until the kicks off the season. This is amazing. Yeah.
Look for the green dots, as you said. So before Vegas on the Tuesday, people will turn green if they're in the Raiders, Warriors, Panthers or Sharks. If for some reason they're red, get them out before the game kicks off, and no harm. No trades are used up prior to kickoff, and it's a rolling lockout. So if you have someone that playing the following week, you can trade them out at any time before their team kicks off.
the other thing that happens sometimes too is you'll wake up one day, you'll look at this team that you loved, and you'll think this is a piece of garbage. And you can cleanse the whole thing. So that clear button up the top in the middle, you can clear it all if you want to as well. And I've done that a few times too.
That's extreme.
It happens.
Longy, Andrew, thanks so much. And I hope this is something for our newer fans to see and to realise, hey, fantasy's not that hard. We can play. Copy the team if you want, and then you can make your adjustments as you go. And we really hope that you come along, play along with us through season 2025. NRL.com and the app is going to have a whole host of amazing fantasy content through the year. So stick with us. You're going to love it, just like we do.